Welcome to this online module prepared for site visitors for STARTALK programs. This module has 3 basic learning targets. Site visitors will be able to explain the purpose of the site visit and what should happen before, during, and after a site visit. Second, they will be able to use the look-fors appropriately during the site visit. And finally, they will be able to support the team leader during the debrief and in the development of the site visit report. The site visit occurs because there is a spirit of continual improvement that forms the basis of all that STARTALK does. It is hoped that the site visit will provide the program with feedback on how they might improve the current program, should that be possible, and future programs should grants be awarded to that program at a future date. For that reason, the site visit is not evaluative and instead is designed to give critical feedback to the program director and others. In order to prepare for the site visit, it is important that all site visitors understand the key documents that were used to create first the proposal and then to develop the curriculum for both student and teacher programs. The first is based here, the World Readiness Standards. Both student and teacher programs use the standards to develop their curriculum. The student programs create a unit design that is thematically based, and teacher programs reference the standards as appropriate in order to prepare teachers for their own classroom experiences. Second, the STARTALK endorsed principles. These principles form the basis of really all that STARTALK does, from the design of the curriculum to the actual day-to-day instruction. The principles should be evident at each stage of planning and implementation of the program and should be very evident during the site visit. At the time of the site visit, the site visitor and team leaders, the site visit team, will use and reference the site visit look-fors. First, they help to guide each visitor as to what to look for, and second, they ensure that each of the STARTALK endorsed principles is part of that day's process. Here you can see that the site visit look-fors look for evidence of a standards-based and thematically organized curriculum, the learner-centered classroom, use of target language and comprehensible input, integration of culture, content, and language, use of age-appropriate authentic materials, and performance-based assessment. The teacher program also references the STARTALK endorsed principles, first commenting on programming design, then learning experiences. And here you can see the connection between the teacher program, which is preparing participants to use the principles in their own classroom, and student programs where the principles are directly being used in a learning environment. The learning experiences and the instructional strategies clearly draw upon the use of the STARTALK endorsed principles. Next, the TEL Effectiveness for Language Learning, or TEL. These statements guide teacher programs in the selection of the learning goals that will guide their program. It's important that site visitors clearly understand the structure and organization of the TEL criteria, the domains and the criteria. The team leader will have worked with teacher programs to create a limited and appropriate number of TEL criteria for the program. But as the site visitor reads the curriculum, the site visitor will benefit from understanding why each domain was selected and why each criteria was selected. And it may be necessary to contextualize that within the broader picture of the TEL domain. The final document that is used extensively in the student program are the newly revised Necessful, Actful, Can-Do statements. This document forms the basis of how the student curriculum is developed, and site visitors who are returning this year will notice a definite change in the curriculum document itself. In Stage 1, programs use this document to select first the performance indicator, novice mid, novice high, intermediate low, mid high, advanced low, as appropriate for their students, and then create the program can-do statements for each function that will be addressed in the interpersonal and presentational modes. Site visitors who are returning will notice that the interpretive mode is not addressed in this stage and has been moved to Stage 3, where it is part of the lesson can-do statements. Understanding the revised document will be helpful in knowing what to look for in terms of program can-do statements, the performance assessment tasks, and then finally the lesson can-do statements that will be part of the student curriculum. Those 4 documents are critical in order to feel well prepared to offer suggestions and to observe for best practices in STARTALK programs. Let's turn now to looking at how to access materials that you will need as part of the site visit experience. When you go to the STARTALK website, to the left you will see immediately the STARTALK endorsed principles and a search resources. The STARTALK endorsed principles section is the perfect place to go if you feel that you need further explanation of any of the STARTALK endorsed principles. The document behind that tab lists bullet points that are part of the description of each principle, as well as resources that further explain each of the endorsed principles. The Search Resources tab is truly an effort on the part of STARTALK to streamline and make it easier to find the documents that are needed according to your role in a summer program. You'll notice here that directly under Search Resources, there are 2 choices, Program Resources, and then one for Team Leader, Site Visitor, and Consultant Resources. When you select the second, Team Leader, Site Visitor, you will go to a page where you will find resources and tools for site visitors and observers listed and easily accessible without having to search where it may have been in an email or in the program guide. They are directly there for easy access. It may be beneficial to explain briefly the difference between a site visitor and an observer. A site visitor has full responsibility for each part of the site visit, preparation, the actual visit, and the preparing of the site visit report. An observer is there simply to observe throughout the day and is not required to participate in the debrief nor to help in the development of the site visit report. Observers are often government individuals who are simply there to see how the grant is being implemented at actual sites. The second part of finding necessary materials would be to log into SOFI. When you log into SOFI, again, you go to the STARTALK website, the main page, and to the left you will see Login, at which point you will be able to log into SOFI and gain access to those fields that you need. In this case, the tab that is circled, My Site Visits. When you click on My Site Visits, your program site visits will appear. I've chosen one here that will be one of my programs for this summer. And then you see 5 tabs: Schedule, Visitors, Logistics, Documents, and Site Visit Report. Let me explain briefly what is behind each tab and then address 2 in more detail. The schedule may be useful. The program director puts in the beginning time and ending time for the day, as well as an outline of what will happen. What might be important now would be the beginning and ending time. As you make your travel arrangements, you'll want to take note of the ending time in order to ensure that you can remain for the complete site visit, allowing enough time to arrive at the train station or airport after the meeting. So perhaps late flights getting home in order to be able to complete the full day. What is there now in terms of what will specifically happen throughout the day is just a first suggestion, and that may change up to the site visit as the team leader and program director work together to determine the actual best schedule for the day. Behind the Visitors tab, you will find the name of the team leader for the program, as well as any other site visitors if you scroll down. So that will be useful in terms of contact information for others who are involved in the team. Over time, the staff at STARTALK Central will be adding travel details, incoming, hotel, outgoing, so that on one page you will be able to see the travel arrangements of all of your fellow site visitors. This becomes important in coordinating travel on the day of the site visit itself, or right at the time of the site visit itself. In terms of the actual documents, that is where you will find documents that you can read now, although you may find it beneficial to wait and read carefully just prior to the program, particularly if you are involved in several site visits. But available for you at this time will be the budget, the actual proposal, and past site visit reports for 1 or 2 years. What is not currently available is the actual curriculum for the program. That curriculum must be finalized 1 week prior to the start of the site visit. At that time, the team leader will publish the curriculum for your review, and you will notice that it will either be publish and approve or published without approval. Either is fine, although of course the preference is to have everything published and approved, but should you see a designation of published not approved, that simply means that time ran out, it was necessary to publish the document, and now the program will need to continue to work and then show during the site visit that they are implementing what would be an approved curriculum. Your team leader will have more details about that should that occur, but I wanted you to know what that designation of published without approval would mean should you see one. I apologize for the delay in advancing that slide, but there you can see what that would look like on screen. I did not talk about or show a screenshot of the Logistics tab, but the Logistics tab does have information that may be helpful to you in planning your site visit. It will show the nearest airport, the amount of time, how you will get to the site. Those are things that you might find beneficial when making travel arrangements. So what actually happens before the site visit? I'm starting with travel arrangements because they tend to be the first thing that site visitors and team leaders do. And you will want to check the SOFI schedule, as we just discussed, to ensure that you and your team leader are on the same page, making sure that you are leaving late enough that you can complete the full day as we discussed. You will also want to coordinate with your team leader to make sure that you book the same hotel, since a program may offer more than one choice. And finally, although it seems silly to focus on rental cars, only the team leader actually rents a car. And so on site visits that require transportation to the site via rental car, every effort should be made to have the team leader and any site visitors arrive as close to possible at the same time so that the rental car can be shared. When it's not possible, often a team leader or a site visitor will wait at the airport in order to make travel arrangements work. Returning to is never the issue, but those are some considerations. I do encourage site visitors to check with their team leader before making actual arrangements, and I will say that it is the team leader responsibility to contact the site visitor, but myself, I overlooked one by not scrolling down far enough when referencing the SOFI information. So do as much as you can to ensure coordination of travel arrangements. If you've already made travel arrangements, it's not too late to check to make sure that the arrangements are coordinated, because it's easier to make changes now rather than later. Then make sure that you do your pre-reading. Give yourself time, because these are lengthy documents. Proposal, budget, and site visit reports, as stated previously, are available now. Curriculum documents. The number of curriculum documents will depend on the type of program. Teacher programs usually have one curriculum. Student programs may have, but usually do not exceed 4 curriculum. And that would be because there are different languages at different proficiency levels. You will want to read those carefully in order to make notes of any questions, comments, issues, concerns that you may have as you read the report. I'm going to go a bit out of sequence here and talk about the morning meeting with the program director next. This meeting is critical. It starts the day. It usually lasts about 30 minutes. It might be with the program director and the lead instructor, but that is completely up to the program director. This is a part, you're seeing one segment of the questions that are asked, but the questions, what are you pleased with? Is there something we should keep in mind as we visit your program? These types of questions are meant to gain information about what the program director already knows about his or her program. The answers that are given often begin to develop the actual site visit report, but they certainly key the site visitors on things that should be looked at carefully in order to give the type of feedback that a program director may be looking for by the end of the day. Program directors are very astute and often know what the problems are and will identify them for you, hoping that you can offer potential solutions. Now, during the actual site visit, just prior to that meeting with the program director, you are likely to have a morning breakfast meeting with the team leader and any other site visitors or observers. This will be a short meeting, usually 30 minutes, where you have the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. Everyone reviews the ground rules for the day, and the team leader should be prepared to point out to you any red flags, issues, or questions that have surfaced throughout the curriculum review process. That will allow the entire team to begin the day on the same page, understanding what is expected of each member of the team throughout the day. During the day, It is truly, in one sense, a juggling act, and everyone has to be on their toes to avoid the potential pitfalls. And it's not intentional on anyone's part, but these are the things that often surface and cause a bit of tension during the day that can be easily avoided. The first is when program personnel, instructors, program directors, lead instructors, try to get direct responses from a member of the team. For example, you observed my class, what did you think? Or a teacher participant who might ask, don't you think we should be? Or I can't understand why, what do you think? We need to be astute, on our toes, and avoid answering those questions, saying something like, we will be looking at everything throughout the day and taking everything under advisement in order to make some recommendations by the end of the day. It is very hard to say that because your inclination is to try to be helpful and to give a direct response. The second thing, for many, myself included, is to constantly remind myself that I am observing from the point of view of STARTALK. It is hard for us to step out of our own roles, whether we are curriculum coordinators or teachers or methods instructors or language instructors at the university level, and not observe from that perspective. But we are really in place to look at the program through the lens of the STARTALK endorsed principles and to give feedback from that STARTALK point of view. It's also a big mistake to fail to take written notes. You would be amazed at how blurred everything is by the end of the day, and your team leader will be counting on you to catch the things that he or she missed throughout the day. Or if it's a large program with multiple classes, the team may find it necessary to divide and conquer, and then those notes become critical for having evidence of what happened when the team was not together. Finally, at the end of the day, it's very hard to remember to use the word we and to avoid answering from a personal point of view, or to all of the sudden feel compelled to interject something into the debrief that has not been agreed to by the entire team. It is a challenging day, and so it requires everyone being on their toes and even helping each other and reminding each other of those potential pitfalls. So let's look at one challenge that happens frequently in programs with regard to the look-fors in the STARTALK endorsed principles. You're at a site that has multiple classrooms. You are looking for evidence of a learner-centered classroom. For example, here you can see that one classroom looks very engaging and the other classroom a bit blah. Now, honestly, I've never been in a STARTALK classroom that looked quite as blah as that classroom picture, but the two images do give you a clear contrast. The challenge is that when you're looking at the lesson can-do statements are clear and visible. They were in one classroom and not in the other. In one classroom, there was a gradual release of responsibility from I do, we do, you do. These are the things, the differences, the discrepancies that we might see. So in the site visit look-fors, where we actually determine how to rank each look-for according to agree, not yet, or not observed, what has to be marked in a case where classroom A is doing well and classroom B is struggling is not yet. And that is going to feel uncomfortable. But this data is for STARTALK, and it is part of that continual improvement process so that STARTALK can design future trainings sessions at conferences to help programs. The program director does not see the results of the look-fors. They have them. They know that the team is talking about them, but anything that surfaces in the look-fors, such as a not yet, would then receive an explanation in the written narrative questions. So that's how those are some of the things that might come up with regard to the look-fors in student programs. In teacher programs, they've been asked to design a learning plan. And by choosing the example on the previous slide and this one, I'm hoping that you can see the clear connection between the look-fors and how they're set up in the student program and the look-fors and how they're activated in the teacher program. Since the teacher program is designing a sequence of experiences with the goal that teachers can transfer new learning into their own teaching situations, the look-fors move through a cycle where participants acquire new knowledge, skills, personal understanding through presentations, video, articles, those types of input documents. They then have opportunities to process that through discussion with teacher support, engaging with their peers before they're asked to apply that new information and new learning into the context that's required by the program or into the context required by their own learning classroom situation. And then finally, that chance to reflect on their learning and teaching. If you're thinking through this acquire, process, apply, reflect, what you're really looking at is the learner-centered classroom in action in a teacher program, and that gradual release of responsibility that teacher participants also should experience when learning new information. Finally, after the site visit, honestly, the day is long, and by the end of the day in the debrief, the site visit report is nearly prepared, but not completely prepared. The actual debrief might change a bit of the content. The material may be refined or reshaped by the conversation, by input that the program director shares in response to a question. But as everyone walks out of that meeting, the content of the report has all been discussed. And so at this point in the process, the team leader will finalize that, put it into almost final format, and should then get that to the site visitors quickly. The turnaround time needs to be within 24 hours. Team leaders must complete this process within 24 hours. And that's to respect the fact that we know that program directors really do want this information, and it's critically important if making any recommendations for the current program. As a team leader, I really appreciate when site visitors read that report very carefully and challenge anything in there. Of course, it's nice to catch the spelling, the grammar, but really what is more important is thinking about the phrasing. Is something stated in a way that it's not clear or might inadvertently cause offense? Those are the types of things that it's really helpful to surface for the team leader so that that can be caught before the report is actually shared with the program director. Finally, read that report to make sure that there's nothing in that report that was not expressly covered in the debrief. I suppose if it was an additional compliment, that would be fine. But the final site visit report cannot reflect a suggestion that was not made during the actual debrief meeting. STARTALK has tried very hard this year to pull together a couple of documents to make it easier for everyone to have this information at their hands. And honestly, the one you're looking at right now, the site visit day, the cycle that it goes through, it really does say everything that this online training has said. So a thorough reading of that would have prepared you without listening to that. It's just our hope that maybe hearing it voiced gives it a little bit of a different perspective that you may find beneficial. But keeping this handy and rereading it is an excellent idea. The final document that I'm showing here is one that you should have received in the mail. It is a laminated, folded document, 4 pages, and it contains lots of key information. It has contact information for travel emergencies and that type of nitty-gritty information, but more importantly, it has the site visit look-fors for both teacher and student programs. It has the narrative questions that are on the site visit report, and it has the interview questions that are asked throughout the day. The interview process is one that will be guided by your team leader, and you will participate in different ways according to the structure of different programs. So that is something you'll understand better when working more directly with your team leader. I suppose in conclusion, this would be the thought that I would share. As much as we've tried to create the exact format for a site visit, we do need to be flexible. You'll need to be flexible in terms of travel. The summer travel guides are not always good to site visitors and team leaders. We need to be flexible and adjust to last-minute changes required or necessitated by the program director. And so it's just worth it, though, because truly, in the years that I've been involved with STARTALK, every year since it began, it's just been such a rewarding experience with so many opportunities to learn from so many individuals who are so committed and so passionate about teaching and learning, that even though the day is long and the travel can be challenging, the rewards far outweigh any of those potential inconveniences. In an effort to allow site visitors to check their own understanding of all of the materials that were previously shared with you by STARTALK, there is a quiz that actually accompanies this presentation, and you are invited to take that quiz. It's completely anonymous, and the answers will be revealed and explained. So actually, it is a self-check quiz that can clarify any issues that you may have. Finally, if you do have questions, never hesitate to send that email to startalk@nflc.umd.edu or directly to your team leader. Send to STARTALK if it involves logistics, travel, things that you know your team leader does not really need to be involved in. But never hesitate to communicate directly with your team leader about any specific questions about the actual site visit, the coordinating of travel between yourself and the team leader. Finally, from STARTALK and from our sponsors, the National Foreign Language Center, which is sponsored by the National Security Agency, we thank you for all that you will do this summer to benefit STARTALK programs, the teachers and students who are learning these critical needs languages. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a wonderful summer.